proportional linear relationship the graph passes through the point 0b or the y-intercept. The y-intercept of a line is the y-coordinate of the point where the line crosses the y-axis. Complete the steps to derive the equation for a non-proportional linear relationship using the slope formula.
Okay, so the ones that we've talked about so far, we've determined before if it's proportional or not. So Tristan, the reason why that one worked to just take the y and divide by its x was because it was proportional. Now we're talking about non-proportional, so that won't work. Okay? When it talks about a y-intercept, so a y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, so right here is my y-axis. This line crosses it right there at that point. That is called the y-intercept. At my y-intercept, what is your x always going to be if it's on this line? What is x on that line? 0, right? So then your y is whatever point it's at. Okay, right here, we don't know what it's at, so we call it a variable. And they're calling this variable b. So that is how they got this point to be 0, b. Okay? We've already learned a formula for slope, correct? What is our slope formula?
y2 minus y1, x2 minus xy.
N over x2 minus x1. And that equals slope. What letter today did I tell you that we're going to use to represent slope?
M.
M. Okay, so that is what you do to find slope, so that equals M, or slope. Correct? Okay. Down here, what they did in this step was they said, we're going to call this point right here the first point. So in other words, this is x1, and this is y1, is what they're saying. So when they substituted that in for y1 and x1, it became y2 minus b, because that's what y1 is, over x2 minus 0, because that's what x1 is. Since I only have one x and one y now, they took off that subscript. So that is how they got y minus b, and x minus 0 equals n. Okay, so far? Just stay with me, it'll be okay. Okay, so then to get to my next step, basically what I want to do is so on top I have y minus b, correct? On the bottom, if I take x minus 0, what does that give me? X, right? Because I have x minus nothing. That gives me x. So we're going to simplify it, like we just did. Now I want to solve for y. I want to get y all by itself. Okay? So right here, you have y minus b divided by x, correct? That's what this means. How do I get x to the opposite side? I would multiply, because the opposite of division is multiplication. Okay, so if I multiply by x on that side, that gives me 1, which I don't need to write. So if you multiply by x on one side, you have to do it to the other side. So over here, I have y minus b, and then I still have this m times x. Correct? Because I'm multiplied by x on both sides? I could rewrite this m times x as just mx, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's what it means to multiply when they're beside each other. Okay, I also have on this side y minus b. If I want to get y by itself, how do I get rid of that minus b?
You add it.
To get rid of it, I need to do the opposite. So the opposite of subtracting is
Addition.
adding it. So I'm going to add b to both sides. If I add b to this side, I have to add b to that side. So that is how they got y to be all by itself. So now I come up with this handy dandy formula. Y equals mx plus b. If you go back up to the top, we said that b is my y-intercept, or where it crosses the y-axis. And M represents my slope. Okay, so the whole point of this was to prove to you that yesterday I proved to you that slope formula, correct? Today, the reason why we did this was because I wanted to show you how you get this equation from our slope formula. It's not like I made this equation up, okay? I got all of that by using the slope formula. That's why it's called Slope-Intercept Form, okay? It gives me my slope and it's going to give me my y-intercept, okay? You're not going to have to solve this again. This point was to show you how you get this equation and why it's true, okay? What we do today is a lot simpler, I promise. You just got to stay with me. So, turn the page. When it is written, when you see an equation like y equals mx plus b, that's called slope-intercept form because you are given the slope and you're given the y-intercept. M represents what? M is what?
Slope.
Slope. Okay, so wherever I see that, that's my slope. And then B represents what?
Y-intercept.
My y-intercept.
Duh.
Okay, you do need to memorize what M is and what B is. You don't have to memorize a number, but I mean you have to remember that M equals slope, B equals y-intercept. A lot of you are going to want to say that this is the y-intercept. It is not. Okay? This is not the y-intercept.
It's not.
This is the y-intercept. Got it? No, you can't. A mathematician worked really hard to get it to this form. Okay? So, example 1. We have to state the slope and y-intercept. If the bell rings, please stay seated.
We still have homework.
Okay, so right here, I have y equals mx plus b. Okay? If I rewrote this equation so that I have an addition sentence instead of a subtraction sentence, I would rewrite it as y equals 2/3 x plus a -4. Is everybody okay with that? I changed my subtraction to addition, and then the opposite of +4 is -4. Okay? I would pay attention. So now, what is my slope? Where do you see M?
Why did you change?
You see M right here, right? What's in place of M in that equation?
2/3.
2/3. So slope is,
2/3.
that's it.
Wait, what?
Okay? Where do you see, so B is my y-intercept. Where do you see in place of B in my equation?
Duh.
So my B, or y-intercept, equals, that's it.
Wait.
That's all I'm asking you to do today.
Oh.
Why didn't you start out with
Duh.
Okay?
Why couldn't you just tell us
Go to
that?
A, please. I'm going to help you with got it A.
So all we write.
So I would rewrite y equals mx plus b. In place of m, what do you see? -5.
Come on.
So m equals -5. In place of b, what do you see?
3.
plus 3.
It's a +3, right? So you can just write 3. Make sure when you have subtraction sentences like B, you have to rewrite it so that it's an addition sentence to fit our formula. So you would rewrite this as y equals 1/4 x. You change subtraction to addition, and then you do the opposite of 6, which is -6. Now you can figure out your slope and your y-intercept. It needs to be labeled correctly. M is slope, B is y-intercept. Your homework for today is got to B and C.
Duh.